So what's going on, Lucas? Retic wise, what have you been up to the last couple days?
Yeah, I mean, we're recording on Memorial Day, so just throwing that out there and want to give our appreciation for those who sacrificed their life to serve our country. But yeah, today was a day of, yesterday I got back from vacation about a week ago and a little less than a week ago, and I don't feed the week before vacation, so it's all been 2 weeks since my retics ate. So this weekend was feeding probably about 50 snakes, and then
You're just saying everyone was happy to greet you when you got home.
Yeah, I mean, I walked into the garage and I'm just smacking the glass everywhere in the tubs.
Dad's home. Exactly.
And that's where I'm like, oh, you guys miss me, but no, they just want to eat. They're selfish. Yeah, so throughout the entire time I was gone, I had my camera on, my Kalatoa and my Solaire, and they were getting it on almost the entire time. And then the last 2 nights, he didn't really have much of an interest. Same exact thing he did with the female Solaire last year. So I put him away, and
they have a good sense of when they've done a good enough job.
Yeah, and she's starting to get real thick now. I'm just waiting for her to probably either go into a shed or like have a really big swelling and then shed. And then, today was like a big day for me. I'm not a very electrical savvy guy, and I installed a new light switch in my garage that has like the dusk dawn timer, and no one died. James was over here and helped me. I bought a little.
Still have hair for me to cut?
Yeah, exactly. I'm growing it out so that you could do that nice pompadour. But I'm excited. What about you? Anything snake related for you? Any updates?
No, I mean, just, the usual, maintaining everything here. I had like 25 pounds of food in my freezer that I couldn't use, so I ran that up to Wildfire. It was just all stuff that was too big for me. So
I'm jealous. I want to go over there.
Yeah, like seeing...
You sent that video of that crank?
Yeah, the jungle gym, and like seeing a 17-foot retic just hanging above your head the entire time we're hanging out was
sketch.
I mean, well, no, it was something special. She was just chilling. He did say he has one he won't put up there because she'll actively hunt him, and I'm like,
yeah, I was gonna say that's ambush, dude. Like, you go to Indonesia, and I feel like you go to Malaysia, you look up, and that's what you're gonna see.
No,
that's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, just a super cool experience always to hang out with Weston for a little bit. So
yeah, well, why don't we cut the chit chat, even though, I mean, there's a lot going on here, but welcome to episode 96, everyone, of the Retic Lounge, and an awesome episode, something I am super fascinated and curious about.
Everyone should be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a great success story, and I don't know. I don't know. I feel like there's people dialed in and they're like, no, I put the male in here, I take the eggs out, and 87 degree, right? Like, very analytical, but like, I don't know, it's just a beautiful experience that I'm excited to share. Hopefully you have her Instagram pulled up, and we'll be watching videos as we're talking to her. But we're gonna have Abby with the curly haired keeper. She is joining us for the second time. I don't know if you remember,
under much better circumstances.
Yeah. The first time we had her on was for the FWC. What did we title the episode?
It was just about the Holy Thursday massacre.
Holy Thursday, yeah. But yeah, it was our I think that was our first live episode that we ever did. And we had her on to talk about that. And now, a little over a year later, we have her on to talk about maternal incubation, because for those that don't follow her, even though, first off, I'm looking over here to my corner of my screen, I'm looking at her in the back studio. Hi, Abby. She has blown up over the last year. She has 51,000 followers now. And I feel like when you are good at social media, you have some time on your hands, you have huge naturalistic enclosures. She's just set up a recipe for success. She has an amazing Patreon. We'll probably talk to her about all that good stuff. But she has, I remember talking to Abby like 2.5 years ago when Abby was a curly haired keeper without the logo. right? Like that like she was just like she had curly hair and she kept snakes, right? And now she is the curly haired keeper. So yeah, I'm excited to bring her on.
Me too. Yeah. So learn a little bit more about Abby, not have to talk about such a grim discussion, and just talk about what we love most here at the Retic Lounge, and that's just new retics coming into the world.
Right. Yeah. Super excited. Let's go ahead and bring her on. Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram at AE Foundry. When it comes to housing your retics, trust me, you're going to want an enclosure that will be just as strong and durable as your reticulated python. The Heartland Reptile Enclosure is next level tough and will outlive you and your retic by several generations. Heartland Reptile Enclosures are designed and manufactured out of powder-coated aluminum to provide the highest quality and longevity available in the reptile enclosure. What makes them even better is they are lighter than your PVC and plastic enclosures out there and are extremely tough. Stop playing around with plastic enclosures for your large constrictors and step up your enclosure game with the Heartland Reptile Enclosure. To inquire about one of these enclosures, speak to Jordan himself at Heartland Reptiles on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. Here on TRL, we preach about the importance of using hooks, feeding tongs, and other tools with your reticulated python all the time. Animal Equipment by Stoney not only has all the tools you need for any snake you keep, but they have the absolute best hooks on the market. What sets Animal Equipment by Stoney's hooks apart from the other guys is their polycarbonate hook ends that provide a warm feel that won't disturb or bother your retic, ensuring a positive interaction from the get-go. Since 2008, AE Stoney has been supplying zoos, herpetologists, and other animal professionals with their tools. It's time for you to step your hook game up and buy an AE Stoney hook. To learn more and purchase one of their amazing products, visit aestoney.com.
Hey, Abby.
Hello.
Hey, Abby. Thank you so much for coming on late, by the way.
Yeah, no, this is great. I'm excited about this topic and always willing to chat anybody's ear off who wants to listen about it. So, and like you all mentioned, it's much more fun conversation than the last time we did this.
Right.
Yeah.
So before we even jump into maternal incubation, your breeding, all that good stuff, we mentioned how you were kind of just like coming onto the scene in big waves, and you have a huge following now and you're doing amazing things with your content. Can you tell us a little bit about like who the curly haired keeper is, what you keep, what you do, and I don't know, I kind of in this, I want you to talk a little bit about like your social media presence and just what you're doing on social media, because you're one of the handful of followers that have now become really big, but you continue to like spread a really good and honest message about keeping constrictors.
I try, so I'm glad that translates because that's the goal. But yeah, we keep kind of keeping bigger animals in, larger enclosures, keeping a smaller amount of animals so we can actually maintain that keeping style essentially. So we don't have a ton of different like species and all of that stuff. We keep a couple of BIs, a couple of rainbows. We have a scrub that's very cranky. And then the rest are oh my God, he's hilarious.
The way that you have given that scrub this human personality that like just resonates with the viewers who watch it. Like I feel like I relate to your scrub python on many days. Like I
feel
wake
like
up and I'm just
she's
cranky.
just one of the
Yeah.
only people brave enough to film those kind of personality traits.
Right.
They are loaded with personality, every single one of them.
Yeah, and sometimes they fire that load right at you.
Right. No, they are locked and loaded, like ready to go.
But the plus side about Scrub, he's only 2. So
What's his name? Cogs?
Cogs, yeah.
Cogs,
it's
okay.
Short for cognac.
Okay,
he just
nice.
looks like he should be having a drink on the side. But yeah, he's calmed down a little bit. We had a friend over the other day. He's very much a one-person snake, so I've gotten him to the point where he will tolerate me holding him. But he gummed the person that was holding him. He's like so lazy. He's like, I want to be mad at you and I want to strike you, but you're not quite worth my teeth. So I'm just going to keep those in and just hit you with my face. But he also doesn't weigh anything. So like, when he does get me, I'm like, did you bite me? I'm not sure. I can't tell.
Yeah.
Can't weigh anything.
He's a character. I just want to give a heads up. I don't want to be called out by Nathan being on mute a bunch of times this episode. So if you hear me like breathing into the microphone, is because I have allergies. So I apologize ahead of time.
You have allergies. We're recording this a day late because I fell asleep sick yesterday. So this is loaded.
It's great. So yeah, Abby, tell us like, what are you? I've wanted to have this conversation with you for a while. So first off, like you keep the scrubs. You mentioned the animals that you keep, and let's talk about like what was the inspiration behind the naturalistic enclosures that you have behind you, and why you went that route versus I don't even want to say like the breeder route of like racks and stuff, but like you could have also done your snakes justice, but not go all out the way that you did. But you went all out, and I love it.
Yeah, and I mean, for full transparency, I do have some of my retics on paper because they didn't do super great in bioactive, and I'm always of the mindset if it's not working for the animal, then make it work for the animal. So, but yeah, honestly, it's because my first snake was a rainbow, and they need super high humidity, and I did some research. I'm like, oh, bioactive seems like it would make that a lot easier, especially in the wintertime. So I set up my first bioactive and I really just enjoyed that process. And then was told, not by anyone in particular, but just in general, kind of the mindset is you can't keep active bigger snakes on bioactive. And I just wanted to challenge that and see if I could when I got my first retic. Some trial and error. There was some dead plants involved, but we figured it out eventually. So now I think I've got a pretty good system going where I know how to set stuff up in a way that works for the bigger active snakes.
You've talked about like it's funny. I'll be in my office at work and I see Abby will go live on Instagram and I pop in for 5 minutes just to say hi, see what she's talking about. And one thing that I see her talking about, Nathan, I don't know if you've heard her say this, but she says it a lot. She's like, I hear people tell me that like, oh, that big snakes can't be on bioactive, right? Or like when people will say like, you can't do this, Abby is always outwardly speaking about, well, now I'm going to try even harder to get it done. And I'm curious, Abby, when did that start? Where did that come from? Is this a snake world thing or is this like a life thing on how you've chugged through life?
Yeah, this is just a me thing of like, I like challenging. I don't want to say it's the status quo because I don't think there's anything wrong with the standard of care that we see. There's a lot of different ways to keep animals that are healthy and keep them happy. But yeah, I'm a stubborn individual. And if someone says, oh, that's not going to work, I'm like, try me. I'm going to challenge that. But also looking at it from a, more analytical point of view of like, okay, well, why hasn't it worked in the past? And how could we do it different than how it's been done before to potentially make it work? So,
right.
Yeah, because our enclosures are heating sources, our UV sources are much more superior than they were 10, 15 years ago. And then
exactly.
Also, It may not have worked for you because of something you were doing.
Right.
There's a lot of different variables that go into it and can be exhausting and challenging and expensive. And, it's not for everyone or every animal. And that's okay.
I will say I had one of my retics in one of my like naturalistic massive ARS rack setups, and I had to switch snakes in there because that snake was constantly burrowing in that dirt and just getting its heat pits and its nostrils and everything and its gums full of dirt. And I was like, yeah, and you know, to the point where, you know, it would try to breathe out and then its neck would like enlarge because it was like its face was all clogged with like dirt. So yeah, I had to, you know, just that like was an example of a snake that just didn't work well with it. And now it's on, you know, it's on Cocoa Chip. I'm not going to throw any plugs because they didn't want to sponsor us.
We also want to thank VivTech Products for being an affiliate sponsor of the Retic Lounge. Stop by VivTech Products for the best UV spectrum lighting on the market that will enhance and improve your snake's overall well-being and health. Visit vivtechproducts.com and use the code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Again, visit vivtechproducts.com and use our affiliate code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Looking for the perfect accessories for your hatchlings or juvenile retics? Look no further than Heli Guy Serpents. Our sponsor, Chris Sexton, is coming in hot with an amazing 3D printer, creating top-notch perches and other caging accessories for your beloved pets. Enrich your retics environment with their high-quality products. Use our promo code TRL10 for a 10% discount on your purchase. Visit them today at heliguyserpents.com and start giving your pets the best. Heli Guy Serpents, the premier source for 3D printed caging accessories. Again, that's www.heliguyserpents.com and use our promo code TRL10 for 10% off all of your 3D printed accessories today.
At least this year. But I will say that it doesn't work for every animal, but if you don't mind, Abby, and I know this isn't what the episode's about, and we're going to jump into that here in a second, but do you mind, can you give a brief synopsis? Like, there are so many people that reach out to me. I don't know why. They reach out to me and they're like, hey, I want to do a large bioactive for my 12, 13 foot reticulated python. Like, what do I need to do? I'm like, bro, I just have ARS racks that are bio-natural. I don't know. And so you're doing it. Can you kind of give a condensed bioactive for retics for dummies 101?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, the first thing is knowing your animal's behaviors. Like, does your animal like to climb? Does it like to burrow? Does it what is it? From my experience, if it's a snake that likes to root in the dirt, bioactives can be really challenging, especially if they're bigger. But shelving and alternative climbing options for them that are sturdier than any plants that you're going to have in there has been my biggest trick that I figured out, because I'm like, oh, you don't want to climb on the plants if you have sturdy shelves and alternative climbing branches to explore on. So they climb and perch on those and leave the plants alone. So
okay, cool.
That's the biggest thing. And get for Stella's enclosure, if it's a big one, get really well established plants that have a strong root structure already. Harder for them to
Are there certain plant species that do better than others?
Yes. I have ficus is great, and ZZ plants. Those are my two go-to. Because ficus, they're both very, very robust and do great in a varying range of humidity and temperatures. So it works great if you're keeping on a gradient. And they just, if they get knocked over, you just literally stand them back up, and then they grow another shoot, and they're just like, cool, we're happy. Like, okay.
Do you have any false potholes, or are they completely unpotted and they're rooted in the enclosure? In
Stella's enclosure, they're all rooted in the substrate.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. I did see an awesome build of someone, but then again, it's a lot taller enclosure for a monitor, but they created a false hole and just put the entire pot of this tree inside the enclosure and then covered it. But nice. That's an insane amount of soil that you need for that enclosure.
Yeah. The other trick that I found in Aries enclosure is I get those little round wall hanging plant hangers that they're super smooth. There's nothing sticking out that the snake can scrape itself on or anything. And I just put potted plants in there, screw them out of the wall and put potted plants in there. And if he squishes one and it looks like it's struggling a little bit, I just change it out. So it's super easy. And probably a little bit more cost effective and labor effective than creating a false.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hole. Yeah.
Awesome. Now let's kind of start heading towards maternal incubation. I'm curious. So this was your first experience breeding any snake, any species, and it was reticulated pythons. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Do you have, before we jump in, do you have any other plans to breed any other species, or are you gonna continue to breed retics? I know that you might be working on a pairing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have another girl that we think is gravid. I had her out today and she feels like she is gravid. So hopefully she'll lay within the next, 1 to 3 weeks. And then we are planning on, we have some additional retics we'll pair like a couple years down the road when they're actually old enough. The females are 2 years old this year, so they still have quite a bit of growing to do. And then we also have a boa imperator pairing that we're wanting to do in a few years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you ever going to do is Cogs ever going to become a dad?
Oh God, no. I don't. One Cogs in the world, I feel like, is enough.
Okay, cool.
No, I don't have any plans for breeding scrubs. If we were ever to like expand and have a lot more space, I would consider
Green tree pythons.
I was going to say
Sorry.
Bolins.
Bolins. Oh my goodness.
That's the better
one
choice.
level up.
Like if you're gonna invest, let's go heavy.
No, I mean I'm totally right there, but I've almost like I spent as much as my ocelot as I could have on a Bolins. It's stupid, most ridiculous.
And you still
I was
bought
gonna
an
say, there's a
ocelot.
lot of
What's wrong
retic
with you?
ones.
I know. Well, okay, but this was also like 2.5 years ago, where finding a Bolins was like that was not a thing. You don't just find them. But I will say that like I want to, and I need to have them in a different room. They need to be cooled down into like the upper 50s.
Right. And they need a lot of space. I would love to have like a pair in a huge enclosure, like let them do their thing, do maternal incubation with the mom and see how they
100%.
do that, because Bolins are notoriously challenging to breed.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be an option, but that wouldn't be like for a while, if at all. But
right. It's there's always those pipe dreams. If they come true, great.
Exactly.
Hey, it's one of my pipe dreams. So
right, you've been talking about monitors since I met you, so we're almost there, Nathan.
That's the realistic pipe dream. Bolins is the unrealistic pipe dream.
I mean, you say that until you realize with the monitors that
you're monitors first. Just cool your jets.
Your 4K into enclosures, 2,500 into monitors, and after a couple years, you're at the price of a Bolins.
It's true. It's true. And then you have to pay for the enclosure for the Bolins.
Reptile
you want to keep it. What kind of monitors, Nathan?
Tree monitors.
Oh, nice.
Greens and blues are what I really love.
Nice.
All right. So Nathan's got your beautiful Instagram pulled up. Let's talk about this maternal incubation experience. First and foremost, I just want to say, I've said this on the podcast before. My goal eventually is to build a building, only about 2,500 square feet, not get more animals, but give larger naturalistic enclosures and allow allow all of my locality animals to just like do the whole natural incubation and maternal incubation and just not touch them and just allow them to do their thing. And when I saw that you were doing that, one of the first videos that you posted of her becoming gravid and then finding her like lay nest, I was like, she is not. I was like, that is such a flex. Her first retic pairing ever, and she's doing it. So what made you want to decide to do maternal incubation?
I knew that I wanted to, when we talked about challenging what potentially
someone told you couldn't. Who was it?
No,
Tell me.
It wasn't anybody telling me I couldn't at all. One of the whole reasons we built Stella this huge bioactive was with the intent, like we laid it out and everything with the intent of letting her do maternal incubation whenever she laid a clutch with us. I don't know if it's just, I just wanted to see if it could be done. I know there's been a shift of like, there's a huge, popular assumption that moms on eggs were just aggressive and mean and, unruly, which we all know if you've ever pulled a mom from her eggs is not true, as long as you do it responsibly.
And respectfully, right? Don't
And
agitate them.
Right. Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Be slow, be gentle, lift from the bottom, and they're fine.
Yeah, be mindful of what she is experiencing in that moment and respond to it accordingly, rather than trying to get her all riled up. So there was kind of that I really enjoyed and appreciated seeing starting to become more mainstream and like public knowledge. So I'm like, all right, well, how can I help support that and kind of do it in my own way? And that's kind of what led me to, well, maybe I can leave her on her eggs and let her do maternal incubation and see how it goes, because it's just not something, it was something that was done years ago before incubators were a thing. So I'm like, all right, well, let's bring it back and see. We have much better options as far as how to care for them, like the bioactive setups, the large enclosures, the lighting, the heating. That's so much better than it was 10, 20 years ago. So it's like, can we bring that maternal incubation option back and see how it works in these kinds of setups? So that was kind of the mindset with that.
You know, I love that Nathan's got the video of her wrapped around her eggs, and you're just like giving her water. It was just so beautiful to watch you two interacting with each other. And you could tell that she was still very much like, what are you doing? Like always like respectfully, like, like just like making sure you're good. Right. Yeah. Before.
And also she looks like a hot mess in that video because she's in shed, because she went into shed and got shed off of her face and then just didn't leave her nest still for another
that's all she needed.
Weeks. That's all she needed. Right. And she just didn't want to, as soon as she shed, she let me like pet her without bucking and stuff. Cause I'm like, you gotta feel so much better. I felt better after she shed. I was feeling so bad. Like,
yeah, I bet. Girl. Did you ever spray directly on her?
No.
No. Okay. Interesting. Nope. That probably would have been something that I've done, or that I would have done. I've seen my retic eggs get drenched from droplets on the top and nothing bad ever happens. But one thing that I noticed, and I want to talk to you about this in that video specifically, is you built her nest right below the radiant heat panel. And that sounds so scary to me.
So what that video doesn't show is she was underneath her hide most, like the majority of the time, unless I was offering her water and would take the hide off to offer her water. But she had a hide to help maintain the humidity. And we were able to keep the RHP was set at like, I think like 81.
Okay.
The entire time. And she would just wrap her eggs and she would keep them, but she would fluctuate the temperature actually pretty continuously.
Ooh, talk to me about that a little bit. That's
right, because that was cool. So
that's geeky. Like I love reading that stuff.
So see how she lets me get my hand in her, like on the clutch. I was able to sneak in the Govee that I had in there with her. It was next to her during the entire time, but then for a couple weeks I was able to sneak it in with the clutch, and she wrapped the Govee. I'm like, oh, this is good. This is going to give me nerdy information about how, like, what temp and what humidity you are keeping your eggs at. So she would fluctuate. It was in there for about 2 weeks, and she would fluctuate. She got as low as like 85.5, and then as high as, there was one day for like just a little bit that she got it up to like, I want to say 90.
Wow.
But for the majority of the time, it fluctuated between 86 and 88.
Okay.
And like 100% humidity the entire time.
So pretty much the parameters that we're artificially incubating them at, except for maybe that one spike that you observed.
Yep. Yeah. And she would just, she could see her like open up her coils to release heat and then close them back up. So it was just constant, like this little wave of fluctuating temps.
I love that.
Yeah. It was just interesting to see that she doing.
The reason why I love that kind of information is because when I am, I haven't done maternal incubation, but when my snakes are gravid, it's real fascinating. I don't know if you've heard one of the more recent NPR episodes, but they had a biologist, I think a biologist that was on, he is like an egg expert, a python egg expert. And he, I'm forgetting his name. I apologize. But he does studies of observing egg development throughout all stages. And he says that by the time that the females lay their eggs for pythons, the embryos are already a third of the way developed. Like that's a third of the way And so with that being said, I have always, and again, I didn't know this information before, but whenever they are gravid after that prelay shed, I would always take my temp gun. Because I'm an ambient. I don't have a hot spot. And I love seeing like when my nighttime drops would happen. My garage would be 80, 81 degrees, but I'd go in during that time and I would temp gun the females and their body is about 85 degrees.
Yeah, it's crazy. They can manage it. I don't know how.
Yeah, they were able to. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It seems like they can warm themselves up, but they can't cool themselves off.
It's a lot harder for them to cool themselves off. It takes a pretty decent amount of time.
Right, but yeah, this is so cool just watching you interact with her. But let's talk a little bit about like the parameters that you set up. So you're thinking in your mind, I am going the maternal incubation route. Walk us through how you set it up, how you hoped she was going to lay on that shelf, and like what did you set the shelf up like? Be as detailed as you want. I'm taking notes here because I will eventually be doing this. I'm being serious.
Yeah.
So give me all the information you can.
Yeah. So when we were having this build happen, I contacted Jared over at Toad Ranch and let him know our goal for her. And I was like, can I get some custom shelves for her? Because the shelves that you can just buy off of them are just way too small for a 12-foot, 40-pound snake that you want to do maternal incubation with. So I was like, can you do these custom sized shelves and set them up to stack how I wanted them? And they're like, yep, no problem. So that was one of the like little homework bits that we did to get it ready. And then as soon as we were like 99% sure that she was gravid, Jody built a like shallow PVC lay box, like little lay situation that we were able to put some sphagnum and some charcoal, like moist sphagnum, charcoal, and springtails. That was the key to keeping things moist without having mold go crazy. Super simple.
And I wonder if the springtails maybe help with any mold development on eggs.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Really cool.
It's especially since had I not had any springtails in there or charcoal, I'm sure she would have had more issues with mold in that clutch because she kept them at like 100% humidity the entire time. Like it was very, very humid. But yeah, we set that lay box on that top shelf. We installed it with a couple of screws into the Toad Ranch shelf and put her favorite hide on there, which was great that she had a favorite hide because she used it. And then sure enough, that's where she laid. And I was like, perfect. The reason we put it right underneath the RHP is because it was easier for me to adjust the temps for her if needed.
Right.
But I didn't really wind up needing to do that because she just did it herself.
Yeah. Mama knows best.
Yep.
My mom used to tell me that all the time. And I was like, no, you don't, Mom. But they do. They really do.
They really do. Yeah. That was the other reason I wanted to do MI because I'm like, this is my first clutch I've ever like facilitated ever. So I'm like, I trust her to know how to incubate her eggs much more than I trust myself, who has never done it before.
You know what? I feel that on like with green tree pythons, I'm gonna be trying to breed them, and the hardest part about them is like not getting a single drop of water on them throughout the entire incubation process. So I'm just like, you know what? From the start, I keep telling myself like I'm gonna go maternal incubation the whole way through. And then the more people that I talk to doing the Chondro Lounge, I keep thinking, no, I need to try and incubate them. And I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. But maternal incubation just seems like a really awesome experience.
It was really fascinating, and it was a really special process to go through with her. Stella really did make it very easy. Like she was really easy to work with. She was really easy to, manage and maintain. But yeah, I feel like if anyone has a chance, like the opportunity to do it, I definitely recommend it. It's just a really cool process to observe and be a part of.
So you're doing it again?
That's the plan. I'm hoping to make MI kind of the standard of how I do clutches around here.
Cool.
Or how the moms do clutches, because I'm not going to do much with the clutches. It's going to be them.
Save space for an incubator, so that's nice.
No kidding.
I mean, granted, we're not planning on having any more than 2 clutches every year tops, so
sure,
still not a ton of.
We'll see.
Doesn't believe me.
Yeah, and I mean, only reason why I don't is because I've had too many females. I didn't pair Partho, and you end up with eggs anyways.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, hopefully we won't have too many of those, but
I highly doubt it. I'm doing something wrong. I just don't know what yet. But so
now, can I ask a quick question about just, numbers wise? How many eggs did she lay versus how many did she successfully maternally incubate?
that was my next question.
That was the other difficult thing because there's so much that goes unknown during MI. Like I didn't have an egg count. I didn't know how many of them were actually good. I'm like, well, she didn't kick any out, so I suppose that's a good sign.
Yeah.
But once we took her off, once we got the nest out and I was able to take the clutch out after everyone had hatched and come out of the egg, she wound up laying 30 eggs total. 3 of them were underdeveloped, so didn't develop fully. 1 was fully developed but very deformed, so it was unalive in the egg.
That was probably the egg that got to 90.
Potentially. They were all in random places throughout the clutch, so I don't know if it was a parameter thing or if it was just they weren't.
It just happens. It happens.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. And then there was 3 duds, so 3 slugs. So she wound up 23 babies, pipped, hatched, all on their own, no problemo. So.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
23. I feel like for many clutches, that's those odds right there aren't atypical, right? Even in a normal incubator development process, and I say normal, I mean artificial incubator, those aren't bad odds. That's I don't know, a little over, probably about 70%. So that's not bad. And so let me, what was she again? What is she? I know she's Anery Motley.
She's Motley, Anery, het albino, and platinum. Sorry, platinum, Anery, Motley.
That's the difference. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I have an Anery Motley from Garrett. It looks like it's a platinum that makes the really big difference because your girl is silver.
She is very silver. She's champagne when she's fired down and bone white head and silver when she's fired up.
Yeah, she looks beautiful. And she was bred to what?
She was bred to an Anery het albino.
Okay. How many snows did you get?
5, I believe.
Good odds.
And I think 2 of those snows are platinum Motley's too. So
nice.
We hit odds pretty good.
Yeah, we're definitely doing maternal incubation again. Let's run it back.
She was pos het albino when we paired them. So one of the reasons we used the male that we did is because he was 100% het. And it was just kind of if she proves out, that's cool. If not, the morph combo stuff was just, it was going to be whatever it was going to be. This whole pairing was just to, maternal incubation test drive essentially and see how it went. So I feel like it couldn't have turned out any better than it did.
We're test driving with snows, right? We'll just see if the whole clutch burns to hell. We're
never
good.
Said she had bad taste, Lucas.
No, that's an expensive test drive. Okay, that's like you getting your first car ever, but you're gonna go test drive this Ferrari real quick. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did it off the bat because now you have that experience, and I promise you, I don't think you're ever going to feel that same high ever again unless you maternally incubate again. Yeah. I feel like, Nathan and I, we've talked about this a bunch of times, Nathan, the best feeling in the world is seeing these little heads pop out of the eggs. While we're seeing these heads pop out and then the background is white perlite. Imagine seeing that in the coils of a mom who you've watched for the last 85 days as your hair gets more gray and
what
your
hair?
Yeah, what hair? Your mustache gets more gray.
Nathan's ahead of the game. He's already got no hair to worry about.
You get it?
So
you get it ahead in the game?
Ahead in the game.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was a good joke.
Yeah, she was kind. The eggs pipped at day 82, so I wasn't having a panic attack for more than 2 days, which is good. She was good about that. I was like, oh crap, what do I do if it's gonna go past like 87. Like, I'm gonna have a heart attack is what's gonna happen.
No,
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but she took a meal before the eggs pipped, right?
She did. Yep.
how many meals did you give her?
I offered her meal every 2 weeks from the get-go. Luckily, we have April O'Neil. Lucas is losing his mind right now.
I'm sorry. I keep looking at Nathan and I just keep thinking ahead in the game. Like it's great.
Oh, but yeah, April O'Neil was our garbage disposal for any feeders that Stella refused, which was great. It made April O'Neil very happy. And then, yeah, she didn't accept a meal until 2 or 3 weeks before the eggs pipped.
It looks like around day 67 or so, based on this.
Yeah, so about 2 weeks.
Did she take it all ginger?
Yeah. No, I want to know what that whole process was like.
Yeah, I was really curious to see, like, if she was to accept food, how she would strike it and wrap it, how she would like manage the eggs, and how she would eat it. So she came maybe about a quarter of the way out of her hide and bit and like kind of like half wrapped it, and then she actually took it inside of her hide to eat. But I kept an eye on her and she kept it off of the clutch. She was like very mindful about keeping it off the clutch. And I'm like, how do you know? It was just really cool. And she ate it no problem. And yeah.
That's so impressive.
Really cool.
Yeah, I think that you know, I've seen I've heard of other people that have done maternal incubation before, and you know, a lot of people will say like they've seen their females pace at night off of the eggs, and they'll feed them a meal that evening, and then after they finish the meal, they kind of like wait a couple hours and then go back to the eggs, get around them again. You know, but to eat on the clutch, be mindful and not touch, that's, I mean, again, good mom. And it's so amazing that you documented so much of this.
Yeah.
And
she left her clutch twice. Once was to finish that shed and like pee and poop for the first time in like 2 months. And then she left the clutch again on day 80 to shed again.
I'm so happy that she finally had that first shed, because when her eyes were just like covered in like, you know, her old shed? I was like, man, they go through it. And I mean, that was cool. You got to document like the ugly side of it too. Yep. Like they look rough. And I mean, I know your heart, you had to be nervous.
I just felt, I mean, I knew that she had gotten the like eye caps off and her nostrils cleared out, which was the most important part. But there was 2 other things that I was really keeping a close eye on, because I didn't want her to go through another shed cycle before getting this one completely off. And then she also there was residual shed left on the eggs. And I was like, hopefully that doesn't do anything to the eggs. But I mean, it's like, well, what are you going to do? It's the whole part of the experiment, I guess. But even with some like residual shed that got stuck on the eggs, they were fine.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Random question. Are those isopods on the top?
Yes.
Okay.
And a tarantula.
Yeah, I got some tubs on the top of my cages too that are isopods.
Yep.
You can spot bug keepers from a mile away.
I know, right?
Okay, now some questions in regards to the experience overall. Yeah. What were your favorite parts about it? And then what were your least favorite parts about it? And I also kind of want to know what you would change, and what you would keep the same. I love your snake dancing in the background, just all the way like nose to the top of the ceiling.
Is that Centauri? Yeah, she's climbing on her light right now.
Oh, little nuisance.
Yes, it's okay. She'll be fine. So the least favorite part was just there were so many unknowns going into this, because I'm like, I've never done this before. I've never like had a clutch in my care before. So just, I was sending a lot of pictures of the eggs to a lot of different people. I'm like, do they look okay? Is this okay? Like,
yep.
Like it looks fine. Like, I'm sure they were thinking in their heads, like, calm down.
There's nothing you could do at this point.
Right. So, yeah, so that was a little roller coastery, especially since I'm a worrier anyway. And then just not seeing your female for, almost 3 months is a little hard because she was very interactive up until a week before she laid. Like, she was still choice-based, coming out, hanging out, chilling. So I just didn't get that for the last 3 months. So that's always a little sad.
She's a social baby.
She is. But that being said, one of my favorite parts was how amazingly patient she was with me throughout the entire process, because I really was doing my best to document everything, and that was more involved. It involved me being like in her space more, and she didn't strike a single time the entire time, like through this entire process. She never struck, not once. Yeah. So that was really cool. The moment that she decided to take a drink of water from me for the first time was a really cool moment. Especially since I knew she wasn't comfortable enough to leave her clutch. She had not left her clutch to take a drink in like over 2 months, I want to say. No, it was shorter than that. I can't remember. I need to look at my Instagram and look at the time frame. But it had been a while since she had a drink. So I was just very impressed with her ability to trust me enough to take water when she was.
That was so cool. I think that was one of my favorite documented experiments or experiences that you had, was just, I watched you do that, and I was like, this is a 40, 50 pound animal. Well, at the time, probably half that, but but just like such a big animal, and just so willing to receive some support from a human friend, yeah,
it was surreal, because it's that's a lot of, you have for all intents and purposes, wild animal sitting on a clutch of her babies that she instinctually should want to protect from any perceived danger. And the fact that she was that docile
with
me and patient with me was, I think that's testament to how much these animals are able to build a bond and trust with the people that care for them.
Yeah. Their social intelligence is almost unmatched by any other snake that's out there. Again, there are other snakes that think more, and you think of king cobras, and you think of indigos, and you think of other colubrids that are just
even scrubs,
right? Even scrubs, right? But as far as the social intelligence aspect is, I can't tell people enough when people say are retics really that smart? And I always tell them, I think it's the social intelligence that takes us back, that really just impacts us on why we think they're smart, because we joke about all the time how they do really stupid things and they're really dumb in a lot of areas, but socially they are just they're up there.
Yeah, their self-preservation is a little low, I will.
Yeah, no kidding.
Our one male figured out how to unlock his door so fast the other day. I was like, how the heck? We have one of those little metal
yep, I could
the bendy ones, not the 3 unlocked, but the little bendy ones that you just stick in and turn.
Yeah,
and he figured out how to push it out with his nose.
I stopped curling them into the glass and just leaving the sticky on the outside, because they will unlock that hinge. They'll push that out.
Yep. Oh no, it wasn't. It was one of the. I'm trying to find it. It's a
coat hangers.
Kind of. It's a length of metal, and you bend it in 2 different directions.
Got it. Okay.
Turn it. He's usually in an enclosure with a 3 unlock, like what you're talking about. And we do the same thing. We cut the tab off mainly because they'll just rub their faces on it.
Again, self-preservation, not good.
Exactly. Why? But yeah, he figured out within an hour of being in his temp enclosure, because his glass broke on this enclosure. Within an hour, he had unlocked it, pushed the lock out, and I put it back because I'm like, was this just a thing that you accidentally did? And he did it twice more in a span of 15 minutes. I'm like, dude, really? You're going to make us use a $20 lock on your temp enclosure to keep you in here? What?
Right. You know what I'm going to I just bought some, and they're coming in tomorrow, because I got some enclosures built by someone local, but the overlap of the glass is a little too close for the those sticky locks.
Yeah.
And it makes the glass really hard to slide. So I've been watching a lot of Dan O'Leary's videos, and I see that he uses these little wall, their little suction cup stickies that have like the little, I don't know how to describe it other than like the nipple that sticks out, like where a hook would go.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And he uses those. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try that. See how it goes. But okay. So I guess like what would you do the same and what would you change this time around?
Probably not be so stressed. Just
Good luck with that.
Trust the process a little bit more. That's the most challenging bit. I wouldn't moisten the spag probably at all.
Okay. How come?
Because she was doing it herself.
Okay.
Because I think if you set up the nesting situation to have the right amount of moisture in the spag when they lay, they just maintain that moisture, especially if they're drinking water. They like maintain that humidity level without a problem. So I think I did make it a little bit more moist than it needed to be, because I definitely caught her like opening up her coils when I would add water sometimes. Probably like, human, just stop trying to help. This is not helpful. This is making me work harder.
Touche. Okay. Yeah. Good observation. And a lot of people talk about the necessity for hydration while they are incubating their own eggs and they're cooled around them. And I am absolutely, I think that you're spot on. They are using their, hydration and internal water sources to provide humidity by increasing heat and expanding and opening up and yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but the you look at what it takes for eggs to survive, but eggs aspirate, they breathe, right? So eggs need to be able to breathe and to exchange healthy air. And if it's too humid and too clogged up, that could probably cause suffocation, which is probably why she opened up, right? She needed those eggs to breathe and get fresh air in.
Yeah, so I stopped. The last time I moistened her spag was probably like a month, like halfway through. And then once I got the Govee in the actual clutch and realized how high she was keeping it, I was like, oh crap, you don't need me to do that. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
And even like when I went to go pull the Govee out a couple weeks later, like one of the reasons I pulled it out is because it was like, there was condensation on the Govee. She was keeping it so humid in there.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm so you wouldn't spray as much. Anything else that you would change? Like, do you want is your goal to keep that heat panel on top and keep it there, and then just being able to monitor? When you explained it in that manner, that you had control of that heat, it makes sense to me. Yeah. But I saw that and I was worried. I was like, oh, I hope that like she doesn't abandon those eggs, or I hope it doesn't get too warm. But
no, she was fine. Because I was also regularly temp checking her as well to make sure she was at a, safe and comfortable temp. But
what was your hotspot reading at during that time?
Hotspot was, I had the RHP set to, I think 81.
Okay.
Anywhere between 81 and 83. And then the hotspot was she was temping at around 80, anywhere between 85 and 87, depending on her, if her lighting was on, like during the day versus during night, but she would keep her clutch warmer than she was temping. Which awesome. I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything else that you would change?
I'm trying to think. My whole goal is trying to emulate what they would experience in nature. So I would probably change up the UV a little bit. Just provide her a little bit of a more diffused UV as opposed to what I had. I mean, she was in the hide the entire time, so I don't even know if that would have made the difference. If she were to have laid not in her hide and like lowered down, I probably would have had to figure out a way to offer belly heat underneath one of the shelves to supplement the ambient temp. Okay. Just to make sure she's not I also didn't want her to feel like she needed to work super, super hard to maintain the temps and humidities. That was one of the reasons for keeping her where we kept her in the bioactive, was just to facilitate her job as best we could, so she didn't have to stress too much about heating it up if it got too cold or trying to cool it down if it was too hot.
Yeah. One thing that I will say to add on that is, I think that from my observation, just keeping all of my animals with zero hotspot, having an ambient temperature, if you're somehow able to just get that ambient inside the enclosure, whether that's increasing the heat panel, or whatever the case may be, instead of having to because again, you have those enclosures are heavy. They're on dirt, right? So to add belly heat would be massively difficult and stressful in a crunch period of time, because you don't know, I've had snakes that are on the floor the entire time during the prelay shed process, and while they're gravid, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness you're not going to lay on your shelf, because that's going to be a nightmare to pull you off of that shelf with the eggs. And sure enough, I wake up the next day, they're on their shelf laying the eggs, and I'm like,
they heard you.
Right, exactly. So you never know where they're going to. So if you have the means to increase just the ambient temperature in the enclosure to 82, even if it's not directly on top of them, I feel confident that they would be good. It might take 95 days or 96 days.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I think that they would do just fine. As a matter of fact, people have recorded in the wild reticulated python eggs taking, I think, one published paper said 118 days for eggs to hatch. Mm-hmm. So they're used to the element, and they're used to, some of them are probably laying early on in the rainy season where it's cooler. So, if in the wild 118 days, I know for us, at 87,
and I think that could partially be, locality specific, just where these animals
are. It could be.
Yeah, because if they're in a cooler climate anyway, then they would probably naturally have a slower incubation. But that's all really good points, because, and again, this is very early on in this process, because this was one time, we're wanting to do it again, hopefully successfully. But it's going to take several successful MI clutches to really kind of dial in exactly what's working, exactly what's not working, all of that stuff.
Right,
so I'm definitely not the people are like, tell me how to do it. I'm like, I don't know. I can tell you what I did and what worked for me, but I don't know if that's going to work for everyone, or if it's even going to work for me.
Well, and Stella could have just been that shining example of a great retic mom. There's not every retic you're going to see wrapped around their eggs.
Right. If you have a mom that's literally just dropping eggs, that's probably not going to be a prime MI situation.
Yeah, my first clutch, when I pulled eggs, she was very loose around them, wasn't showing any intention of wrapping them. Been about 6 to 10 hours between the lay, and I think if I would have let that one go I would have been heartbroken.
Mm-hmm. Well, and next week on episode of the Chondro Lounge, we interviewed a dude who had he was going to do maternal incubation, and there's a guy who didn't care to he just wanted to try, and the year before he failed with the incubation method he used, so he's like, he threw away his incubator, and as soon as that mom laid the eggs, 3 hours later, she abandoned them and was perched. And so, some moms will literally just leave the eggs.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like that's setting yourself up to jinx yourself. If you're
listen to that episode. It's a crazy story on how they were able to successfully get the eggs to. It's so cool.
Awesome.
Especially when you think about chondros having these sensitive eggs that everyone is if you fluctuate temperatures, if you get them a little bit wet, they're done, and it's crazy. These eggs went to hell and back, and it's a really cool story. But
it also, that's the kind of thing that makes me wonder though. It's but they successfully hatch in the wild all of the time.
Right.
And the wild is not this perfectly controlled environment. The eggs are probably going to get wet here and there. They're going to kind of go through it, and I don't know. It just kind of makes me giggle a little, as I'm like, I don't know that they're really that sensitive, or we're just perceiving them as that sensitive because we haven't figured it completely out yet.
Right. Exactly.
It's just kind of always keeping a eye open for alternatives, I guess, or different ways we can do things.
I agree. Real quick, Nathan has this video on the screen. you know, my profession, I'm all about emotions. Please tell me what the hell was going on when you saw these eggs popping out. And she it looks like they started hatching and she moved away from the clutch.
So fascinating behavior from her is on day 80, she left her nest during the day for the first time, the entire time. She left during the day to shed and got her shed off, and then went back, like directly back to her clutch. But instead of wrapping them completely like she had been, she like left them open a little bit. I'm like, what does this mean? Oh no, does this mean everybody's just like it went to crap, or does it mean like something's happening and you know it and you're just giving them like more oxygen? Like what's going on? And then sure enough, I think that was on day 81, and less than 24 hours later is when the pips started.
Dude, that is she knew to the 24 hours.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
Yeah. So like my blood pressure went through the roof, but she was just like, nah, it's fine. They're just getting ready to come out. Calm down.
She's telling you like, grandma, chill. Like,
right. Exactly. Like so funny. So that's probably the biggest thing I would have changed, like, and will change the next time, is just trusting her more. Like she knows what she's doing. I do not need to stress about
again. At least she does.
Yes.
She was perfect along the way. She did a phenomenal job.
Yeah. Look how deflated she looks. Oh my gosh.
It's a rough feeling, right, Nathan? You ever pull a female off of eggs and you're like, oh, you're gonna die.
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to talk about was
right.
like she probably looked like crap for that first, month and a half or 2 months until she took food.
She looked pretty okay. She was right around probably a little over 40 pounds when she laid. So she had really good like body tone when she laid, like good enough that I was like, are you actually gravid or are you not? And obviously she was, but yeah, she looked pretty good up until, and again, it was hard to get a really good idea of where her body tone was at because she was just so diligently on her eggs, and when they're all coiled up, I'm like, I think you don't look like decimated, so I think you're doing okay. But then when she came off her eggs and I saw her on day 81, I was like, oh my gosh, you look tiny.
Yeah, it's a whole different snake, right?
Yeah, and that was after she had taken the meal that I offered her for her first meal on the clutch. So we pulled her. All of the babies wound up leaving the egg around day 87, and that's when we took her out, gave her a nice warm bubble bath. She literally just went right into the bath with the lid off and was like, she's like, where's my glass of white wine? I'm ready to be done with these hooligans. Made sure all of the eggs were, done and all the babies were fetched from. That was the other fun thing, was making sure I found all the babies.
Did you record that whole thing? Is that a Patreon video?
I have Patreon videos of me fetching babies at 2 a.m.
I think I've watched a couple of them.
Yeah.
They're phenomenal.
It's so funny. I was getting up at like 2 a.m. every night after the baby started pipping, just to come down and check and see if anybody had left, just to make sure no one was going where they weren't supposed to. But yeah, we weighed her on day 87, I believe, and she weighed 17.8 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
She was like handling a scrub python. I was like, where did the rest of you go? She was active the entire time. She was alert. She was curious. She seemed like she's totally healthy. She's already gained back 7 pounds. So she's pounding food. She's absorbing calories like she should be. But yeah, this is why I tell people, I'm like, MI is not for every planner or every keeper. It's really hard on them. It's definitely not like, if you're planning on breeding them back-to-back seasons, do not do MI. They will not do well with that.
A good example, so like my wild-caught Calatoa that's being paired with my Solaire, she had last season off, and I had to basically force a season off for her, and I fed her very lightly for that whole year, because she will throw Parthos. Like, I can not put a male in there and she will give me a clutch, and I'm just not about it. So then this year came along, and she normally is paired up, and she starts her follicular development August, September. She'll ovulate in October. and babies for her have hatched in December, January, and the first week of February. She's bred 3 times for me. So, and I, with the crazy weather this year and her missing a year, I went to go offer her a food, and I have not been feeding her to cycle her up and get some more calories in her yet. I was actually in a drought feed with her, and I had just gotten her out of her drought feed a little bit and gave her first big meal. And then the next meal after that, she took so gingerly. And I was like, this is weird. So I was looking at her body, and I was like, you're good. I put the male in, he starts arching, and I know she's cycling, but like if I was in a situation where I was considering maternal incubation, I would not be doing that with her, because she's probably about 5 pounds lighter than she normally is. And again, this is a snake that's maybe 20 pounds, right?
Yeah,
so five, she's a quarter.
Like,
so
you want it beefy.
Yeah, and she'll lay a clutch. It might be a smaller clutch. It might not be the best clutch that she's ever had, but I know that she bounces back. Literally, I could feed her 2 days after she lays, and she'll take it. So I'm not concerned. But like if I did maternal incubation with her, she would be like just bones.
Yeah, that's it's a little nerve-wracking when you first pull them out, and you're like, where, what? Oh my gosh, you're so skinny.
Yeah, that first breeding experience when, we're doing AI and pulling the snake off the eggs, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't wait to get some food in you, because this is just sad.
Yeah, alone another 81 days.
Yeah.
But one thing I get asked all the time, just from outsiders learning that I keep snakes and breed them at home, is, do these snakes have any kind of maternal qualities? And, with artificial incubation, I'm not able to answer that question very clearly. But, we have, a little bit of an example here. You want to speak on some of their maternal qualities?
Yeah, I think you would be able to run it pretty well, because, the mom, if it's a good mom, she doesn't want to leave the clutch. Pulling eggs, I'm sure you've experienced that with moms who are just like, don't leave me alone. I just want to stay here with the eggs. And that's a huge sacrifice on their part. Like, they're sacrificing a lot to get their babies to the point of fully developed and hatching. But what was fascinating about this process, because I was like, I am going to let them come out on their own. I'm going to let them leave the nest on their own. And there were quite a few that would just like hang out in her coils. And she was just loosely coiled, and she would like move.
Now, were these out of the egg, or were they still absorbed? Okay.
Nope, these were out of the egg. Like they for a couple, there was a handful of them that for a couple of days literally just dogpiled on top of Stella. And she just hung out. She was like, all right, they're using me for heat. And I was assuming they were probably using her for residual heat and potentially protection. I don't know. They're all super chill babies, so I don't even know if they cared about self-preservation or not. But yeah, she seemed very mindful of the babies that were in her coils. Like, she'd move around a little bit, and if she like brushed up against one, she would immediately move. So she seemed very aware about who was in there. And then when I went to go pull the clutch of eggs like out, I actually wound up having to like take her off the nest completely once all the babies left, and the eggs were, from what I could tell, were all empty. They did wind up being all empty, thank goodness. But when I went to go move the actual clutch, she would like put her head like in my way and be like, you're not taking these are mine. I'm like, girl, I think you're done. Like, can I please have your eggs? But she wasn't being like aggressive. She still never struck, but she would just move her head quickly to like on top of the eggs and like in front where I was trying to like move them out. It was interesting. I don't know if she smelled like the underdeveloped babies that were in there and thought she still had like a job to do. Like, these babies were like not viable at all. But I'm like, do you smell them and you think you still have a job to do? I don't know, but it was just really interesting behavior to observe.
Yeah. I love how, like, because I mean, at her size, it would be so easy for her to just crush those babies. And just like the loose coils and like even just like the knowledge of like one in the back corner. Yeah, it's fascinating. And again, I'm trying not to anthropomorphize or personify these animals. I don't, I think it's cute, and we can do that on social media a little bit, and that's what brings people in, right? And I'm sure that's what brings a lot of your following in. It's right. You've given Cogs like this like a persona, right? And and it's so great, and it's amusing, and it's not fully incorrect, right? But at the same time, like, I also want to just acknowledge I'm not trying to do this by making the statement, but like the we could call it maternal, right? But at the end of the day, it's the instinct of continuing their job, because their job in the world is to reproduce, right?
Yep. They want to make sure that their babies are ready to go. Yeah.
And she did seem like she did that to a T. And and the other animals that didn't make, and I'm not talking about the deformed one or whatever, but the other eggs, that could have not been her. That could have been like on us, right? Could have been on you, or it could have just been on the male as well, right? Like the male might have not just had.
Yeah, could have been a fertilization issue. It's. I wish there was a more definitive way to answer that question of like, why didn't they? But it's just.
Yeah.
Science would need to advance a little bit more before I would be able to, figure that out, or any of us would.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I am the first to admit I anthropomorphize my animals, and I am aware of what I am doing and that I am doing it. People get real mad about it, though. It's really funny. It's like, you know what? It's,
I enjoy it, and I'll do the same thing sometimes. Like in my garage, like when I'm just with the snakes and I'm talking to them, because I do that. Nathan, I don't know if you do that, like when you're getting them out, but
I feel like most people do, whether they care to admit it or not.
Right, exactly. And it's just a matter of like, okay, so like you do it, but you're not publicly doing it. But like those of us who actually look at these animals as more than profitable and more than like a breeding thing, then yeah, you're going to do that. And to be honest, I appreciate the pages like you that do it, because again, there's a reason why, like, one year I looked at you and you had 2,500 followers, and a year later you had 37,000 followers. And you're the type of person that is bringing people in that don't like these animals, and you're making them interested, and you're making them ask questions.
Things. Yeah, when people are like, "Wait, I'm terrified of snakes. Why do I think this is cute?" I'm like,
right.
Welcome to my page.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I also think there's the other end of that extreme of like, I get the argument of snakes have no satience whatsoever. And I'm like, okay, what research article are you looking at? And it's always like that.
Or have you been around a retic ever in your life?
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, this empirical research paper said blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, when was it published? And what was their research like?
Right.
I've seen your argument about research recently.
Right, exactly. Because there's a lot of, it's actually really cool. I recently did a peer review spelunk of reptile satience, and there's a lot of current data being found and documented on the fact that like, oh no, they're way more satient than we originally thought, which is like, that's the whole purpose of research. It's like past research informs future research. And it's like, okay, well, this is what we thought before. Why? And was it correct? How can we challenge it? How can we do it better next time? Much like breeding, right? Like,
yeah. And I mean, and if there's new research available, then we shouldn't be using things that are older than 7 years anyways.
Exactly.
So,
and it's also, I feel like it gives the idea of snakes having no satience whatsoever just gives people who want to hate them an excuse to hate them.
Well, it's not even that too. It's the breeders that are using that aspect to justify their way of keeping them, in my opinion. And I know that might upset people.
I'm glad you said that, because that means
that might upset people, but we do know that there are people that don't keep them in the most ethical or best ways. And you know what? And I don't even want to say in the ethical or best ways, but they are still in their production is their priority, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again,
it's an art project as opposed to like a living, breathing thing,
right? Like I'm happy. I want more for my snakes than I give them, and definitely want more for other people that keep them in smaller enclosures and things than I do. But if their snakes are healthy, I'll give them kudos. Like, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad, right? But at the same time, I think it's a way to justify that, like, they don't feel anything, and therefore they eat and they breed, and that's their only purpose, and that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, it's a convenient truth, I think, for a lot of people, whether it's, the general public, like that portion of the general public that really loves to hate them. And they're like, well, I'm allowed to hate them because they don't feel anything. So I can, go run over a rattlesnake intentionally and feel fine about myself. And I'm like, if I challenge you on it, you're going to feel real uncomfortable and you're going to get real mad. And they do. I'm like, you're uncomfortable because
they'll feel pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's like a lot of cognitive dissonance that comes along with that challenge that I think a lot of people just aren't ready for. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna hide your comment or delete it or whatever, because I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Dude, I love when you go on your story rants about people who comment these type of things, and I'm like, get them, Abby.
Oh my gosh, that's my call for like my followers to go like comment back on that person. I'm like, I'm not gonna respond to them, but like, have at it, fam.
Right.
This is not the right account to hate on snakes.
No, I agree. I've had a gnat just bugging the hell out of me, being a gnat. This whole episode, I don't know if you guys have seen me like look around and swipe away, but it's bothering the hell out of me. Anyways.
Oh no.
All right, let's move on to babies. I know that Nathan has some videos that he's going to pull up. So tell us the process of separating them, what you did with them originally, where they're at now. Like, I'm curious, like what's happening.
So we have, cause we're extra, we have like a 2-step system that we came up with. So that standard is they just stay together until they shed their egg skin, right? Like we maintain that. We wound up with so many babies, which was great. So we just split the clutch into 2 different sterile 2x2 enclosures. So they were still in the full, like, sterile, but they still had like cork bark and a climbing stick and a shelf and some other stuff, like enrichment stuff in there, just because I wanted to see. I'm like, what will you use?
Right.
Before you're even out of your egg skin. They used all of it. They like
experiment.
They baby rave every single night since like the first time we put them in there. It's hilarious. Yes. I have video. I'm going to find a rave song to make a video with because it's just
I can't wait for that.
But yeah, they've all shed their egg skin now, except for we had one baby hatch out with a little bit of a prolapse. She's been doing okay. She's not out of the woods yet, but she's our one that still hasn't shed. I'm hoping she'll shed tonight.
G.I. Joe was helping you with that one, right?
Yes. Yeah. Joe Ho was helping. Yeah. He came over and helped show us how to like take care of it. It did pop back out 2 additional times. And then I added some addition. I actually reached out to some green tree python keepers because apparently prolapsing can be pretty common with those guys. So that was a nice little tip.
So sugar water. Did you use the hemorrhoid cream? What's it called?
Yes. So we
Prep
got
H?
Preparation H, the stuff without the painkillers, like you want to get the analgesic free kind. So we got that. When she prolapsed for the 3rd time, we did the Preparation H, and then we actually, this is a tip that I got from a green tree python breeder, was Coban wrapping it.
Yep.
So the tiniest little Coban wrap. She was really good about keeping it on, and I'm very glad I have veterinary, like vet tech experience. Okay, I can do this. She doesn't have it on anymore. She's had it off for the last 3 or 4 days, I want to say, and hasn't reprolapsed.
Good.
So we're just waiting for her to shed and see.
I think she's going to do phenomenal when she finally gets some fur in her, and she gets some, because like just digesting and pushing out all of that watery stuff makes it very stressful on their digestive system. And the moment that her digestive system has to work and break down fur, and she actually has like feces, I think it's going to do really well. But yeah, that wrap is kind of like the step before you have to take it to a vet and have it stitched up for a couple weeks. So that's really good. Really good feedback.
Hopefully it will hold. She'll shed. We have some smaller feeders. I ordered some smaller feeders for her specifically, just to get her started on some smaller meals. And then we'll see how it goes. But they're all super chill.
I'll offer some advice. You can get small feeders that still have way more fur on them if you get African soft furs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's good to
so
know.
African soft furs develop fur way earlier at a
Mhm.
much smaller size than a mouse or a rat.
Yeah, these guys are sizable enough that I'll be able to start them on small mice, and I'll give her
Perfect.
hopper mice, so there'll still be fur on there.
Oh, perfect.
Which
Okay,
is
good.
great, because I'm like, okay, good. I don't have to start you on pinkies because they're just not as nutrient filled. So yeah, they'll get the full whole prey item from the get go. Just gonna try them on frozen thawed, see how they do. Hopefully they'll eat, but we'll see.
How's your so what's their setup like now?
Oh, so as soon as they shed, we've been separating them out into 2x2 neonate bioactives. So the ones, or most of them that have shed, are in there. Right now we have 2 babies to each 2x2. Some of them have still been dog piling on top of each other and like cuddle butting or whatever you want to call it. Some of them just stay separate from each other the entire time. So I'm going to keep an eye on them. We have extra space to...
That made me flinch.
I put a trigger warning on that reel so people wouldn't flinch. It's not working.
Damn you, Nathan. I didn't see it, but I'm watching over here and it struck see. This is just when I tell people that I'm a baby about getting bit, you guys just witnessed that. So
I took away the scary video.
Oh, you would have jumped out of your skin when April nailed me the other day.
Oh man.
April like punches with her face when she bites.
Dude, I saw that. What was this recently or the one that you documented?
This was like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, the one when
April... I saw she got you good, and that was around the same. That was around the same time that I got rocked by a carpet python at Bill's.
Oh right, you posted a picture of that. Yeah, she food moded real hard, and luckily I had studied enough. I'm like, all right, don't freaking move, just let her nail you, because that could have turned into stitches really quickly.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me, but kudos to you for
you held your own at Bill's, but we kind of knew it was coming, so I think you did.
Yeah, I mean, from the time that I held it and it wrapped me, I knew I was getting. So I had like 10 minutes of holding it before it finally just did the thing. I wish it would have done it earlier.
Animal too, so
right, exactly.
That's when you're doing something else, and you're like, all right, just bite me whenever you're ready. I'm gonna go distract myself.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, they're all in their neonate bioactive setups. 2 to each 2x2 setup. At the moment, we might separate them further before we start feeding trials, depending on their behaviors. But yeah, they're active little suckers. They are utilizing every inch of enrichment that they have in those spaces, which is fun to see.
Yeah, I will say that. I mean, just my observation, anytime I turn my lights off in my garage with, a clutch that just got out that first shed, I see them cruising all the time. And it does put into perspective, just from a breeder's perspective. We have to be realistic. And when we're producing 2 or 3 clutches a year, we can't have, some can. And I'm unable to have a bunch of, enclosures set up for them. So rags is really the only viable option. And, I see them just moving around and being, and that's why I include those perches and, and different options in those. I've even played around with the idea of every time I go through a paper towel roll in my garage, I'm just going to cut it into 3 and just throw it in a hatchling tub and just, start putting just random things in there.
Yeah, they utilize all of it, like from day one. They've just always been, temp guns, whatever. Some of them are already starting choice base. Like they'll be at their glass. I open it up. They're like, friend, up they climb. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, I feel like they're just like, much like any other animal. If you don't give them a reason to be scared of you, then they won't perceive you as a threat. Although if I was that tiny and saw me coming, I'd be like, what the heck? But apparently they're more chill than I am.
Yeah, I mean, they don't know different. You did a great job with just always being in their face from the time that they were out.
I've been sticking my hand like up in their enclosures. I'll go in and just grab them out. My goal is to help them be able to differentiate a little bit better from the get-go between hands and food.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit of desensitization from just foreign interactions happening with them.
Yeah.
I'm curious what the results would be on how many eat their first, second, third time. Because I'm doing like a little experiment in my head. I mess with my Solayer clutch a lot. And you know, the whole clutch finally got the hang of it, you know, the third time I offered. And I don't know if that's because they absorbed all their yolk and just weren't hungry, or if it because I was messing with them so much. And so now with the Philippine clutch, I've been more hands off with them, and most of the clutch has already taken, actually all but one have taken their first meal, and they took it on the first or second offer.
Nice.
And
yeah,
so
that's going to
wondering.
be one of the things that we're going to document is like how many of them eat right away, and like if interacting with them like I am right now is going to affect their like food response when food is actually in their face.
Yeah, but they are, yeah, I will say a lot of my Kaltoa clutch, my Kaiwadi clutch, a lot of my Super Dwarf clutches have been just like these animals. Curious as can be. Some of them maintain that throughout their entire life. Others, I've noticed that once they have that first or second meal in them, you know, every interaction is like, whoa, food mode, chill out first. Think. And then they finally are like, okay, I'm not being fed.
You're gonna. Aries is trying to climb on a moving stool and he's about to fall off of it. Dude.
Is this a cat?
No, he's my snake.
I think this is the first time we've acknowledged Aries being out during the episode.
Yeah, I haven't. I had no clue.
The whole time.
Yeah,
no, I mean,
this whole time.
There was something that got knocked down early on, and you know,
that was him.
We looked the other way.
Yep. Well, and Centauri's climbing around and doing the glass surf and fall over thing too. So it's a hot mess in here right now. Shahaya woke up. She's behind me.
Welcome to Keeping Retics.
Y'all. They're like, why are you down here? This is supposed to be our private time.
Right. Question for you is, what are you doing? Are you selling them? I know that you've worked with Garrett side by side with a lot of the animals. Are you sending them to him? Are you selling them? What are you doing?
We are doing it all ourselves.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we have a beautiful website that my husband built, that Jody built for us. So as the babies get photographed, they'll be put on that website. We have an application form for anyone interested in applying for a baby or getting on the wait list. And it just essentially just pops you onto the wait list. So we have a wait list for about half of the babies so far.
I love that you have an application form. What's all entailed in that?
Can you go on the website, Nathan?
You can go on the website and just if you want to just see what's on there and apply for like go through the process, and you either, I don't remember if you have to submit it to like read it. I don't think you do, but if you do, I'll just let Jody know. Like that's just you don't need to call Nathan tomorrow. But yeah, we have it's essentially just an an acknowledgement of information regarding the animals that people are interested in. So like, these are these babies, they're from this pairing, they're going to be estimated to get to this size as adults, like agreeing that you acknowledge what it takes to care for them responsibly, and essentially just doing our best to set people up for long-term success with the animals that they get from us, and also just create a really strong support network. So if something does happen down the road, they feel safe and comfortable coming to us and being like, hey, I ran into this, like, what should I do? What can I do? So offering like long-term support for the life of the animal. And also like, if you run into a situation where you like can't keep it anymore and need a place for it to go, we'll take an animal back, no questions asked.
I love y'all. That is so just well-rounded, great breeder ethics with keeping retics, and kudos to you guys for doing that. That's huge. I am even more happy that I asked that question on sales, because I danced around the idea of asking because I don't know, a lot of people don't like to talk about that aspect, especially when they're, you know, I know that you and Garrett work a lot with each other, I wasn't sure, but I'm so happy that I asked, because one, the website's beautiful. Two, your process of selling and setting people up with success are great. I have been super procrastinating on my website. Adler and I are supposed to actually get together tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
To start working on it. Well, not start working on it, to finish it, or at least get close to it. And, and yeah, so and for me, I have I don't have a buy now option. You can't buy it directly from my website. You can hit that you're interested, and it auto populates a code like the animal ID and sends me an email that you're interested. And then my care sheet is on there for people to read through, and they need to agree to the care sheet and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I love that that's becoming more and more the norm for like reticulated python breeders and like snake breeders in general, especially with an animal like that can get to Stella's size. That's not a like, hey, I'm going to get this as a cute puppy pet for myself. I'm like, you need to know what you're doing. You need to do some research. You need to let me know that you know what you're getting yourself into before I agree to sell you an animal, essentially. And I don't want to be punitive. I just want to make sure that people are informed, because I think too many times people go to an expo and see a cute baby mainland and buy it for $200, and they're like, look what I got. I'm like, oh no, how big is it going to get? I don't know. Why?
Yeah.
But
I mean,
again,
running through the application process really quick, it seemed like you were pretty thorough. You hit kind of everything.
Oh, we can't see it, Nathan. It looked like it downloaded and took you to another page.
It probably did. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay. But I'm glad to, I'm glad to hear that it's thorough.
Yeah, and we're always open to like feedback and suggestions and stuff. Says this was our first kind of pass at it, and I'm sure it will change as we get further into the process. But yeah, we wanted to have something for people to essentially acknowledge that, yes, I understand what is involved.
It asked if you had any prior reptile keeping. Yep. I said yes, king cobra, of course.
Yes.
But I mean, the last page before you submit any of the application, you kind of identify what you're looking for, what clutch you're looking for. You have general care acknowledgments. Mm-hmm. You have the overall care and husbandry. You have feeding. You even make sure that they're reviewing your care sheet.
That's awesome.
Ryan McVeigh went through and applied for, got on the wait list, and his answers to the what reptiles have you kept was hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh no, I hope he didn't list every single species he's ever had, because it's going to be a novel.
Oh, he did for sure.
But no, he did. He listed something like, I think I had a toad once. He was cool. I named him Fred. Something ridiculous. I was like, oh my God, you're right.
Okay, yeah, it was either he was going to list every single species or give you a smart-ass answer.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
It was just a hilarious story about this toad he thought he might have had once named Fred or something. I was cracking up.
I found him under my mom's tire and brought him in and named him Fred.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, the snakes have been loving, the babies have been digging the VivTech lighting that we have in there. They're already in basking behaviors, which is really cool.
Yeah, mine love it. Sean has his ternate female here, and there's not a time where she's not basking under it. It's pretty awesome. Cool. She basked under it so much that I cut the amount of time that the light was on. I was like, I'm cutting you off. I don't know if you're getting high from the shit or no, but just she loved being under there. So I was like, mm-hmm. I'm going to just give you 4 hours. No, she uses every bit of it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love being able to watch natural behaviors pop up. And we're in a very privileged situation with our place, because we are able to provide that. We keep on a small enough scale that we can provide that. And we also have, we both have jobs and incomes and stuff. So we're able to do a little bit more upfront investment, which I never want to come off as elitist and you must keep exactly this way in order to purchase an animal from us. It's no, we just want to make sure that you're well informed. There's a lot of different ways to keep animals well.
If you don't keep retics right, you're going to have a bad experience, and who knows what's going to happen to that animal after that happens.
Yeah, and that was the other thing is we've done some work and some fundraising for various reptile rescues, and that's another part of our thought process with that application form is okay, how we're going about selling animals, is that going to contribute to the work that they are doing, or is it going to help mitigate it? And kind of going from that thought process. Yeah, that's kind of been our philosophy, I suppose.
I like that. And at the end of the day, it doesn't take all the bells and whistles to make a retic happy and healthy. I guess what I mean by happy is, again, going back to a healthy animal that has a sense of security while also having the ability to move around.
Yep.
But yeah, I think you guys are doing it right. Warms my heart to hear that you guys went through the effort of the website and the application, and that you guys are going to be selling these animals. And I don't need another snake, but I feel like just watching these videos just makes me want a little piece, a slice of like this whole story. And I think I'm going to kind of speak from like a marketing perspective, because I have a little background in marketing, but it's genius. You are selling and a lot of people ask me like, hey, how'd you sell your clutch so quickly? And how'd you do this? And I on my social media, I made sure that like now I did mine more from like the breeder stance, right? But like I still showed the pairing, the pairings, the locks, the ovulation, the inverting. Like if people wanted these animals, it was in their face. They saw it, but they also saw the whole story, right? And then they saw the failure from the year before, right? And so it's giving a story. It's giving your buyers like the whole outline and getting them to feel like they're involved in the process. And you took that to a whole other level.
I didn't realize how vulnerable I was going to feel until we got to day 80 of the clutch. I'm like, if this fails, I'm going to be like super, super sad for Stella, super sad for myself, but also like feel like I'm disappointing everyone else who's been along with this journey. So that's like one of the risks that you take, being transparent and sharing that process. Yeah,
I can relate to that on a smaller scale, not a 51,700 follower scale, but I can, I've had some clutches that I've done the whole process and then it completely shits on me, and then people are like, man, what happened? Like I wanted one, and I'm like, this is part of the game. It happens. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But no, you're the whole aspect from a marketing perspective and a sales perspective. I understand that's not your priority, and so I don't know if this is intentional or not. But this is like, it's genius. Like you're giving people an into the life of what it was to create the baby through a natural perspective, and then you're showing the behaviors of the babies. And I'm over here getting out of morphs, moving every morph out of my garage. I have an Anery Motley for sale right now, and I'm over here like, I want to buy one of these animals. That's probably an Anery Motley, right? Just because I've seen the experience. So kudos to you and Jody. You two have done a beautiful thing. So happy that you shared the experience of maternal incubation. I'm hoping that we start to see more of it coming along.
Yeah, I've had a couple people reach out saying they want to try it. So hopefully that would be really cool. But yeah, I honestly don't know what the heck I'm doing on social media. I share what I'm passionate about, and I post when I want to post and what I want to post. And that's about the crux of it.
This song seems like a good one to put with this video. Yeah, well, can I give you a song suggestion if you can find it on Instagram for the reel for the babies at night? The raving, baby? Yeah, the whole like club song. I'm cute. I'm sexy.
Oh, gosh.
You know what song I'm talking about?
Yes.
Nathan, following? No.
Is it the "I'm Sexy and I Know It" song, or
no? I'm cute. I'm that it's an old song. It's a very old song, but anyways, on that note, Nathan, do you have any questions before we wrap up with the curly-haired keeper?
No questions, no rave suggestions. So I'm sorry.
Okay. Abby, it's been a blast. It was great having you on, and such a, I don't know. I love this episode. There was so much that I gained out of it, and I learned, but also just kind of finally getting to talk to you more about this whole experience, because I've been so excited for you from the beginning. So really,
I appreciate that. The support has been really mind-blowing and so appreciated and unexpected. So it's been really magical.
Yeah, the community can be an absolutely beautiful place when you look in the right areas and you allow that support to surround you. So yeah, do you mind drop your plugs? She's got a great Patreon, but drop all the plugs. Just kind of
It's-
show off for a second.
Yeah, it's literally just the curly haired keeper on everything. Instagram. My Instagram is connected to my Facebook. Don't friend me on Facebook. I will not see it or respond to it. I just am not very interactive on Facebook for the most part for my own page. And then thecurlyhairedkeeper.com, the Curly Haired Keeper on Patreon and YouTube. And that's it. I'm not on TikTok anymore. I have an account on TikTok. I just don't use it because TikTok drives me crazy. But
Same.
yeah,
It does. All right. Well, we'll definitely be having you back on at some point to talk more about the shenanigans that you're doing with your animals. Yeah, you have a good rest of your evening.
thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to go pass out because it's almost 1 a.m. here. So
All
bedtime
right.
for me. But yeah, thanks so much for hanging.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks for staying up
so
late. Bro.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
See you, Abby.
Bye.
All right.
Wait.
Well, another one in the books, Lucas.
Yeah, that was a great one. Yeah, I probably could have asked a million more questions, but yeah, no, that was a fun episode for those of you that are tuning in for the first time because you are fans of the Curly Haired Keeper. If you like the episode, check out our other content. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Reptile Lounge Network, and we do have a specific Retic Lounge Patreon. You can find us at that link that's down below. And shout out to our Patreon members. You guys have been awesome. And yeah, just keeping the group active while I was on vacation, while Nathan was gone. It's just cool to sit back and see the group just kind of chill and hang out. And yeah, you got anything else before we wrap up, Nate?
No, I think that hit most of the major points. Let's make sure that we're shouting out Discord, Patreon, because they're our biggest supporters. We couldn't do this as long as we have been doing this without them. A little late in the episode to say something about it, so got to remember for next one. But you guys, we'll see you on the next one. 97. We're getting that much closer to 100. Can't wait.